I'm Jason Wisniewski from the Lakeside Ramblers, and today we're going to do a workshop on primarily Scandinavian American old-time music from southwestern Wisconsin, the northeastern corner of Iowa, and southeastern corner of Minnesota. So because this is recorded and you'll have a chance to pause and go back, we're going to try and do 4 tunes. We'll work our way west geographically and start in the Madison area with a band called the Lakeside, that's my band, the Goose Island Ramblers, which is actually the namesake of my band because they were one of my personal first entries into this style of music. So we're going to start with a Norwegian American standard called the Stegen Waltz, and this comes from Bruce Bollerud, the accordion player from the Goose Island Ramblers, and the transcription you have is out of a wonderful book of his called Accordion Ufta, and there's also a mandolin version. I highly recommend it. Great tunes. It comes with accompanying recordings you download for free from the internet. It's quite good. But so the Stegen Waltz is really like a dance music workhorse. And you can really, if you're playing for dancers or if you're playing in a jam and you want people to be able to pick up a tune pretty quickly, the Stegen Waltz is a great choice. So here's I'll play the whole thing through a couple of times, and then we'll go a little bit slowly through the different parts. So that was the Stegen Waltz, or stepladder waltz. A couple of points just before we get going is that you'll probably have noticed that there's a little bit of swing to the eighth notes in this waltz, and that's fairly typical for an upper Midwestern Norwegian American waltz. Then that swing and rhythmic sort of dynamic emphasis can change from player to player and tune to tune. But you will get sort of a swing um, in a lot of different Norwegian American waltzes. And paying attention to that is going to help you play in a more accurate style if you're trying to learn this music. So, to begin with, we have, and I start that with just an up bow slur, and you'll have you'll have this or a version of this bowing already written in to the sheet music that that comes along with this class. And the reason for that is not to give you this is how it has to be played, but rather this is how I play it a lot of the time. This is a way that you can play it and get the sound that you want. And that after that da 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 pickup, we have, and that's a perfect example of a place where the bowing, a particular bowing pattern can give you what you want. So you have 5 notes in the measure, and you can play all separate notes, and there's a lot of separate bows in upper Midwestern fiddling. But what I do is I play 1, 2, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and then I end up with each, or almost each, measure starting with a down bow, and it gives me good control over the bowing and various types of emphasis. So I'll just go a little slowly through the A part of this tune, and again you can slow it down, so I'm not going to take it quite phrase by phrase. So that's the A part. Feel free to, I believe you'll have a loop function. So feel free to loop that, play with it, slow it down if you need to. Let's move on to the B part. And there we have that same bowing pattern. Here's another tune from the Goose Island Ramblers. called Kvestervalsen, but you'd know it better as No Norwegians in Dickeyville. So it's originally a Swedish tune, although they thought it was Norwegian amongst themselves. Uh, and they were playing in the town of Dickeyville, Wisconsin, one night, and didn't have a name for this, so they just called it the Dickeyville Waltz. And afterwards, one band member says to another, "Hey, there's no Norwegians in Dickeyville," and so they wrote some song lyrics, which you'll hear later at the concert. But behind the song, which became a popular tune of theirs, is this great waltz that you can play with or without the words. So here it is, Kvestervalsen. And that is the Kvestervalsen. So we'll take it a little bit slower through the A and B part, and then we'll talk just briefly about some variations that you can do, and move on, because again, you have the ability to slow this down. That note right there, that F sharp on the D string, is the tricky part of this tune. And it's not so tricky itself, it's just something you're probably not used to doing as a fiddler. And what you're doing there is you're playing F sharp, which would normally be your second finger, with your third finger. So it's like a flat third finger. It's exactly a flat third finger, actually. Otherwise, you would have to jump directly from a low second finger on the A string to a high second finger on the D string, and that's just hard. So it's much easier to play that note with a low third finger, and then when it comes around again, you play it with your second finger. So... So there's the A part. It's not too difficult. And you'll notice that I have some grace notes in there. like right there. I'm sure I use a lot more. But the way to really use these grace notes, where you're doing something like is really to listen a lot to other players and see where they're throwing in ornamentation like that. So here is the B part of the tune. So a couple things to note there. One is that sometimes I'm playing multiple notes on the same bow and stopping my bow between them. And that's a way that you can keep your bow going in the direction that you want. So let's say you want to land on a downbeat with a down bow. One way can be to do a double up bow or a double down bow somewhere. You also heard some of those grace notes that I talked about. And one other thing that you probably picked up on that I did in the last tune too was this, or those two notes. And playing what's called a double stop, which is when you play two strings at once. And this double stop is, in this case, it's G and B, and this is the interval of a minor sixth, which is music theory talk, but this sort of interval is a really common way to end tunes amongst upper Midwestern fiddlers and accordion players. And you'll hear it all the time, and I can pretty much guarantee I'm going to do it at least once or twice more before this workshop is over. The next tune we'll play is from northeastern Iowa, and it's called Alfred Bloggen's Hop Waltz. And a hop waltz is really a polka. The polka as a dance actually moved through Europe, including Norway, faster than the term polka for that dance. So in Norway, polkas became things like hop waltzes, hamburgers, skotsks. And so in northeastern Iowa, for some time, one woman commented that it was always called a hop waltz. It wasn't until you had accordion-based polka bands coming through that people started calling hop waltzes polkas. So this is a pretty easy tune. There's a lot of it's a lot of fun. You can get a lot of mileage out of it if you can get some people to pick it up for a jam. So here's Alfred Bloggen's Hop Waltz at more or less full speed. Right, so you might have noticed actually that I didn't play the A part the same each time. And there are lots of ways to vary tunes. You can vary tunes with melody notes. You can vary the tunes with your bowing, with rhythm. There's a lot of choices, and I've listened to 3 recordings of this tune, plus looked at the written transcription that I've made sure you get, and none of them are the same. Each musician is doing something different. And this is something that one of my musical heroes from way up in northern Wisconsin, Otto Rindlisbacher, talked about. He said something along the lines of, this is how fiddlers work. They get the tune and they do their own thing with it. And so that's what we do with Alfred Bloggen's Hop Waltz, and what you can do. So here are some options. Let's talk about the beep. We actually didn't look at the parts more slowly. Let's do that, and then we'll talk about options as we get to them. So right there, you could do and continuing on. And you'll notice that if you look at the transcription, I've written in that little ornament there, and you don't have to do it. You can do it sometimes and not other times, and that's actually a great way to vary the tune. Let's continue going on through the B part and talk about some things you can do there. So one thing, and this transcription actually comes from a band called Footnotes in Decorah, Iowa, where Alfred Bloggen lived for a number of years. What Beth Rotto, the fiddler of this band, plays is actually a little different than what's written. So instead of, she plays. So take a moment to slow that down, loop that. That's a great variation, and in fact, you could argue that maybe considering the Decora connection, maybe that's the real way to play the tune if such a thing exists. And this is a southeastern Minnesota tune. It's called the Minnesota 6/8 two-step. And it comes from a band from Mabel, Minnesota. And this is a pretty simple tune. In 6/8, obviously from the title, but it'll be a little different than if you're, for example, used to Irish or Scottish jigs, which are also in 6/8. There's a different sense of rhythm and the metric importance of particular notes. So here's the Minnesota 6/8. And you'll notice that I ended there with that same minor 6 double stop. And so there's a lot of ways to vary this, but let's start with just going through each section. So Bruce Bollerud, who did the transcription for this, has a double stop already written in for the very beginning of this. You don't have to do it. You can just play if you want, and that's perfectly up to you. So. There's the A part. One thing I tend to do with bowing is I tend to keep each group of, or each beat in one bow. So if you think of a measure of 6/8 as having 2 beats of 3/8 notes each, I tend to keep each of those beats in in one bow. So you see I've stopped the bow there instead of going. I think it just works better. Nobody taught me to do this on this tune. It just gives me the sound that I want from listening to this kind of music for long enough. Unlike Irish music, for example, I don't tend to slur across beats or across bar lines. So it tends to be very da 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 da, very sort of straightforward. But what you can do is you can, for example, play with the duration of the notes within each beat. So instead of playing, I could play. Play something like that. And the same thing in the B part, which we'll move on to now. In fact, I think I tend to do that more in the B part than in the A part. And so different ways I could play that is things like that, adding slurs, extending notes, playing double stops, and I could play or lots of options. So while you're learning these tunes, pay attention to those kind of options. And spend as much time listening as you can. Hopefully that gives you a little repertoire boost of 4 tunes, hopefully some that we can play together at some point. So thanks for coming to this workshop, and have a great rest of the festival.